about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
That was Great Sounds Watts Without Sound on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. Easy Blues. Easy Blues, you were always better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on the program?
You know, they say people are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. They surround when you're down. When you're strange, people remember your name. And that is one of the most important things. When you can jump beyond the regular scope of what you see, what you hear, and where you live, that is one of the most important things you can do. The weirder you can get, the better you are. The stranger you are, the more enticed you are to breathe in the ether that is this world. And for that and that alone, I want you to put your hands together now. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2 because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, put your hands together for the fantastic, the amazing, the stupendous John O'Donnell from the Weird Music Night. What's up, man? How are you?
Hello. Wow, I didn't realize this could be real radio personalities. This is lit. Yo, my name's John O'Donnell. I was born on my father's birthday, conceived on Halloween, raised in Montana. I've been a Dave & Buster's millionaire, founder of Weird Music Night, John O'Donnell Projects, founders of the streetwear brand Oily Boys, and a couple other things I'm not remembering right now. I'm a printmaking professor at the University of Connecticut and the founder of Weird Music Night. Hello. So that was inspired. Woo. Wow, thank you, Easy Blues. Preston Wilson, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, man, what's a lot?
I feel like this is the natural environment for Weird Music Night. This is really cool.
This definitely is, and it's one of the most important things actually when it's out there. People don't seem to truly understand, you know, what it's like not to worry about pushing those boundaries. What was it that got you involved in Weird Music Night, and why Weird Music Night?
Well, what really got me interested in Weird Music Night was just the fact that I'm not really good at normal music. I was kind of one of these kids that grew up in the 90s, so it was mandatory that you played a guitar or at least were aware of a guitar. And I always wanted to be a musician, but was always more of a natural visual artist. But then, you know, fast forward throughout my life, I became really good friends with a lot of really talented musicians, some of who have become part of famous bands. And so through that whole process of growing up and learning about life with musicians around me, I realized like I'm not really good at normal music, but I was always doing strange things and, you know, buying kids' toys and kind of making fun of the concepts of structured music or practicing. I've always been really annoyed with practicing something. Mm-hmm. Kind of just like to just do a thing and then that's the real thing. That's what happens. And also the invention of an iPhone, being able to record everything as it's happening was really important for me. Just to be able to flow with certain things. I used to do a lot of freestyle rapping like in the late 90s. And so there's always just like fun things that were never really studied or planned. And anyway, then fast forward, I became a performance artist and I've been performing in museums and galleries since like 2008. And at a certain point, I really wanted to start singing. And then when the pandemic happened, I was spending a lot of time on my phone with my headphones and I downloaded an auto-tune app and I started singing. And then through all my career as a performance artist, I just started to meet a lot of other performance artists. And then I had this idea that a friend of mine, we're going to do a performance that was musically based. And I reached out to the Ely Center knowing that they were interested in some programming. And through the process of planning this event, they said, oh, what's it going to be called? And I go, I'm not really sure what it's going to be called. It's just going to be a Weird Music Night. And then the rest is history. And we've been doing it for just a year, but we've done about 19 different shows, New York, Miami. I'm leaving to South by Southwest tomorrow.
Congrats.
Yeah, but it really emerged from my participation in performance festivals all around the country, and one specifically in Estonia, where I saw literally the weirdest music and it wasn't even because it was culturally different. It was just weird and probably not necessarily uniquely Estonian, but just strangely artistic and emerging from this really cool Scandinavian, Northern European punk rock scene.
Oh, nice.
And it was just, I mean, literally just almost too weird to explain. And I thought, I want to do something like this one day. And also all the curators I was talking to and all the performance artists all had these cool little like pet projects of organizing events in their community, and nothing huge, just like, you know, asking people they know to perform, and then an audience grew from there. And I was like, oh, I want to give that a shot. So that's kind of where Weird Music Night's coming from.
No, that's awesome. Now, what in your mind qualifies music to hit the term weird? Because some people will think, you know, music with a keyboard is weird, and some people might think, you know, Yoko Ono doing a solo record isn't weird enough. Where do you sit, and what are the guidelines for the Weird Music Night? Where I don't really think there are guidelines, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a certain structure that's essential for weirdness to emerge, and there's also contrast is super important. Like if everything's weird, nothing's weird. So, for example, Preston was at the last Weird Music Night. We started with a pretty dry poetry reading of a philosophy professor, and it's really important to me that like a meal start with something that creates a certain level of contrast. You know, like we start with like some bread and salad before the meat, and then there's the dessert or whatever it might be. So it's all about contrast for me. And weirdness is, for me, so much about idiosyncratic personality. And so the personality and the performance is super important. We all have heard weird music, but to see weird music is something that's really important for weird music as a performance element. And one thing that I think about is someone like Lou Reed, who is doing kind of things weird and strange, but not so strange. But then to fulfill a contract he had with the record label, he created a noise album, machine music. And even looking back at that, it's almost like compared to our contemporary noise scene, history, mythology, it's kind of basic. But at the time, it was completely earth-shattering and disturbing to certain people. And I listened to it and I'm like, this is actually kind of melodic. Like it's kind of, and I'm really interested in the mythology of performances and the presence of a performer. There's this Japanese noise band called the Boredoms, which Kurt Cobain really liked, and Nirvana even toured with a little bit. And they had these different kind of characters, almost like the Power Rangers. Like they all had their different personalities. And one guy, Eyeball or I, from the Boredoms, for one show took a piece of construction equipment, like a giant bulldozer, and like crushed the building in the middle of the performance.
Oh man.
And so these types of mythologies happen, and there's all these other kinds of things that I wouldn't really describe on air that performers would do. And then we think about someone like Gigi Allen.
I was just going to mention this is a Gigi Allen free zone.
Yeah, so this is actually appropriate. I did a performance in Miami called PG Allen.
Allen. Oh man.
And it was with confetti and a microphone that squirted ketchup.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I used a jug of water, and I was breaking everything, and there's like a smoke machine. So I've always been interested in like that's the big question, like what is weird?
Right.
That's a good question. That is a good question. Like weird could be weird for other people. It could be normal for other people.
It's so interesting that you mentioned like Gigi Allen, because the director of the Gigi Allen documentary did the original Joker. Joker Part 2 is probably one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my entire life, and it dealt with music. And being a musician, it had everything in it that I love. It just was so out of context that it made me feel more uncomfortable than it should have. You know, and that's one of those different type of things. Now, are there places or acts where you sit in that uncomfortableness, or do you try to stay away from the uncomfortableness?
So there's a really good example. I have the South by Southwest show opening Wednesday. There was a performer, I'm not going to say any names, a performer who is known in the tabloids, or at least in the reels of YouTube or the shorts of YouTube and the reels of Instagram, for using his own body fluids in a certain way. And so honestly, it was a conversation with the fair organizer and myself. And so we had to say, actually, no, because it's a family-friendly event. And even if it's weird, you still have to find these certain boundaries. So sometimes you have to follow the rules to break the rules, and you got to be aware of the rules in order not to like alienate people, endanger people. You know, there's legit biohazards out there. Hepatitis B exists. You know, there's certain things that can't quite happen. And weird, you know, I think weird is a really mushy permeable definition. So I think in a lot of ways there's an element of potential danger, but never real danger or the indication of danger. I think of weird as a cartoon version of reality, where you can illustrate and animate violence, or you can illustrate and animate something that's highly suggestive, but it still has to end up on TV at a certain point. Like the cartoon has to be digestible to a certain audience. So there's moments of those boundaries being pushed that I've encountered as a show organizer. That's just the most recent one. And then, and then you're in a really weird situation because I'm not necessarily censoring art, but I do have to protect the audience.
Right.
And I also have to protect the sound equipment. There's rules to weird in a weird way.
Well, it's structured.
Yeah. And also that's another important thing about Weird Music Night. Everything happens on time. I have a schedule, and it's super important. And I learned that from a curator in Estonia. He was organizing this whole day of events, and all he was really concerned about was that we don't let the audience down in terms of the structure we promised them. So that's why Weird Music Night, even though it's all these strange, different variable things, and everyone has been completely different. It's really interesting, but it has to stay on schedule. And I make that promise to the audience. And it's really important for me. Like, Preston, you sat down, you had a program. It makes people feel like, okay, it's weird, but it's weird that I'm anticipating, because sometimes, something out of left field is interesting at times, but there's a certain level of anxiety I want to remove from experiencing the weird, which is one of the reasons I always start with something relatively dry.
I didn't think the Ninja Turtle song was dry. It was pretty funny.
Oh, I forgot about that part. Yeah, that's right. I should mention I'm the MC of the event.
You did a great job too.
And I really like doing that. And it's I'm a professor by trade, and so I really enjoy talking to groups of people. I'm not the type of person that writes things down, so a lot of things are kind of off the top of my head. But since I am an educator, I have to keep things PG-13. So there's these containers to the way I express or interface with the audience, and sometimes it's smooth and sometimes it's not. But that's the Weird Music Night. I always say it's Weird Music Night, not Good Music Night. It's free. You can have your money back.
That's a great line. I actually used to work the door at the State House, and we've had a couple of nights where there were really weird music. I remember one time I wasn't sure if the sound check had ended and the act had started, or we were just in a really weird loophole of just constant feedback for no apparent reason. So there's different things there. Or the night that the dude from Suicide came down, and yeah, and he literally punched and smacked a $30,000 keyboard.
Oh my God! I never heard
45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. We rented the keyboard. I was dying. I was dying. I was like, what? Like at one point, I literally looked at the owner of the State House and was like, "Are we being punked right now?" Like, is it? He's like, "Nope." He's like, "I paid this guy a certain amount of money to be on this stage at this time, and that's all that matters." And it was something that was truly remarkable. And he was such a remarkable talent, a remarkable human being. The stuff that he was actually suggested on his writer for the Green Room was actually for the local opening act before him.
Oh, cool.
And he made sure that he stayed in New Haven for an extra day so he could spend some money in New Haven. He wanted to know what were some good places to go and different things like that. So obviously we sent him in the best directions and in some of the weirdest spots, because, I figured him at 3:00 in the morning at Brick Oven Pizza was what you needed in your life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a little bit of Mamoons too.
Mamoons is great. I got to all Mamoons late, so I'm a little bit disappointed at myself. But I'm not disappointed for attending your event, though. It was really fun. Just experiences different people, and the chemistry is insane. Like when I was talking to different people in the audience, I felt like I was there. I felt like I wasn't there for the first time. I felt like I've been there for numerous times, just with the atmosphere with the audience, because everybody was just in sync. Which leads to my question: how many acts have you turned down for Weird Music Night? Because it feels that it starts off empty, and then out of nowhere, within 10 to 15 minutes, you look around, it's a packed house. It's really crazy.
Yeah, every Weird Music Night around 6:55, I get super nervous
Yeah.
because there's no one there, and then boom, 20 minutes later, it's packed. And you're totally right about the chemistry, the atmosphere, affectionately referred to as vibes.
It was a good vibe.
They're immaculate in my opinion, and sometimes I have a hard time understanding how the night goes because I'm so wrapped up in certain things, and I'm the organizer, the MC. I got to take everything down at the end of the night. I'm the person interfacing with each one of the musicians. I'm usually moving chords out of the way, whatever it might be. So I always get a sense that it's a good experience. But then I really, like just what you said, I've heard that from so many people. And also a few people like, I didn't realize it was such a social event. Right? Yeah. Because you all share a moment, and then you zoom out, and even the procession of the events where we start on one floor and then we walk upstairs together, and some people bring their own chairs or help with certain things. So yeah, it's become a really cool social event, and it's really cute because like we've all grown up in a space where we are familiar with the scene. Like there's the bar or the coffee shop where we know we're going to run into someone. We might not even have their phone number, and it's before social media, but we go to a scene to see people that we think we're going to see. Right. And so some young people in their teens, early 20s, they said the third, fourth Weird Music Night, these young kids, probably in their early 20s, they said, it's so cool. I just saw all the people I saw last time. And I said, yeah, it's called a scene.
That's awesome.
And I really realized that's where a lot of these people are seeing each other, quote, IRL, in real life, for the first time in a month. And so, and also, it's helpful that it's in an art center. It's a cool architecture. It's an easy location. It's, it's not a big white cube like a traditional gallery. It's very much, people are sitting on the stairs. They're watching stuff. There's a banister. There's a balcony. There's an archway. There's exposed wood that's stained that's 150 years old. It's a cool vibe, and it's a cool scene. It's a cool space.
Oh man, I couldn't answer it better myself. I've been hearing a little bit of rumors though, and maybe
what's up?
Just clarify for me. I really hope it's not official, but I've been hearing talks about the Ely Center shutting down, and I feel it's really bad for the community, especially for what you're providing, just for the city, And I just hope you can just tell me that's not true.
Yeah, so nothing's official. Nothing is set in stone. No papers have been signed or unsigned or left unsigned. Anytime there's a landlord who is dealing with a arts organization, the landlord, they have a lot of power, and they also don't necessarily have the same amount of kind of empathy, I would say, if it were a family. I'm not suggesting that landlords are generally empathetic, but what I'm saying is when there's kind of a faceless logo that the landlord's dealing with, and kind of knowing maybe landlords have a little bit of insight to a certain endowment, or knowing that it's not dependent on one person's salary or paycheck, then a landlord can have a little bit of entitlement to squeeze or threaten. And so I don't really know anything about the person that owns the property. I do know that nothing is official. And I do know that if we were to lose that space, we would be ambitiously searching for another one. And there's a lot of wonderful spaces around New Haven, but thankfully, Preston, nothing is official.
That makes me
happy.
And
there's a lot of other conversations about different types of funding that are in the works. And like I said, I'm on the, I don't know if I said this or not, but I'm on the board, so I'm part of these conversations. And I'm optimistic, to tell you the truth. Yeah. So no, I've been hearing similar things, but just letting you know, as far as I know, from what I know, I'm optimistic, and I've worked with a lot of different arts organizations over the last 15 years. And this is a common conversation, and there's a lot of, and also it's important that even these types of conversations happen, so the public understands how vulnerable these types of organizations are. And it's just reassuring to hear someone say, oh man, I hope this isn't true. And, that can just, create more attention for the organization, let people think like, hey, maybe we need to step up, maybe we need to support, maybe we don't take this this organization for granted, or nothing lasts forever. So even if we are here for another 2 years, like, hey, you better come over here and enjoy the next 2 years with us.
And that's one of the most important things, to have these type of conversations. This was something that had happened actually with the State House itself. I remember having conversations with some people who worked for the city, and them saying, "Oh, I wish we would have known earlier. I wish more people would have talked about it. The city would have been able to do something A, B, C, D, or E." Are you guys looking to engage the community itself to see what they can do community action
The
wise?
community on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven, Preston and Easy Blues with John O'Donnell. We're getting weird for music night. Go ahead, Easy Blues. I am very sorry.
I was done with my question. That was
okay.
The timing is perfect, bro. I'm telling you, man. It's
yeah, the most important thing that people can do is come hang out, come to Weird Music Night, come to the openings. They happen every Sunday. Parking's free on Sunday. There's always good vibes. It's an art center. It's in a beautiful building. There's 7 different galleries, all these different rooms. There's always some good snacks. There's always some good drinks. Each exhibition is super thoughtfully curated with a lot of artists. And, I used to live right around the corner from the Ely Center in East Rock a long time ago. And even when it was under different management, it was still kind of my neighborhood spot on a Sunday. Just to know that I'm going out for a little stroll. I'm going to stop by here and likely run into a friend. And one of the cool things about it is there's a lot of kind of usual suspects, New Haven style, that show up there. And so if you're an old New Haven head, you're going to run into some people. And I just like that vibe. I've been an active member in New Haven since about 2007. And then, moving in and out at different points and, getting jobs in different locations in the state, which kind of removed me a little bit. So I'm just happy to be back at the Ely Center and knowing that there is, New Haven's a special city. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to articulate that. And sometimes it's all about, again, like Weird Music Nights, about contrast. Like I lived in Tolland, I lived in Stores, I lived in the Hartford West End, I live in West Hartford now. And every time I go to New Haven, I really miss it. And I know it sounds a little saccharine or corny, but like, man, sometimes I go to New Haven, I was like, damn, I took this place for granted. I should have, I should have really, really enjoyed not being able to find a parking spot downtown. Or I fondly remember the too many one ways, Yeah. So yeah, that's all people can do is show up, come to the events. There's a donation bin, drop a buck in there, keep your eyes open or your ears open for different ways that you can participate. Volunteering is super important. I love to volunteer in situations at art centers because, hey, I'm hanging out in an art center. I have something to do. Sometimes you go to an art gallery, like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, well, you can help someone throw these bottles in the recycling bin, or hey, help carry this over here, or we're moving a table. I don't know. It's just it's a good space to hang out. It's a good space to participate, and a total range of ages and economic demographics are gathering there.
Favorite performances at a Weird Music Night so far that just were just eye-opening to you?
Yeah, there's this really great group of kids. They did their very first performance ever. They're known as 2005 Company. They're 3 kids, all in their early 20s, and they did an amazing. They're really into taking concepts and identities that are manufactured and engaged through corporate speak, like whether it's like a work retreat where everyone's led into meditation, but the intention of the meditation is to increase a company's profits. So that's just kind of, they did this really wonderful guided meditation, 2005 Company's commercial guide to spiritual enlightenment. And what was really important about that is, again, like I said, Weird Music Night is all about contrast. So this were these kids' very first performance ever.
Wow.
And a lot of people say it was their best one because it was unimpeded by a history or practice or overthinking things, but they happened on the exact same night. And for another musician who has done the soundtrack to like 245 TV shows, is Emmy nominated, a very famous person in that scene, on the same bill as these kids who are doing their very first performance.
Right.
And so to me, that's super important for, giving younger people exposure next to people who probably could afford to be around some younger people. Right. So this really cool back and forth is super important. And it's so funny, Preston, like so many of these nights blend together in a fun way. There's also a really great person who I invited to perform. They're a clown named Double Soup, and they get their name Double Soup. Yeah.
Okay.
A clown puppeteer. And he circuit bent and rewired a bunch of kids' toys and performed with those. And that actually reminds me about another origin story of Weird Music Night. Is it comes from this tradition, which is a little underground, called a puppet slam. We're familiar with a poetry slam.
Yeah, no, the puppet. We actually have had Anatar on the show.
We did. That's right.
Yeah, I know Anatar.
They've talked about their puppet slam. I do the door actually for their puppet slam sometimes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a big inspo. I perform about every other year at the puppet slam that happens at the University of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good way for me to, like I said, I've been performing at galleries for a long time, but there's something special about doing it on a stage.
Yeah.
And having that type of attention and quiet and lighting. So Puppet Slam, a bunch of short form performances, and puppetry is a really broad term, just like weird. I was invited to a Puppet Slam by a director of a puppetry museum. I said, I'm not really a puppeteer. He goes, puppetry is object performance. You perform with objects. So in a lot of ways, a really talented theatrical guitar player is a puppeteer. The way they manage a guitar, the way like someone holds their space, their body in relationship to an object. Even Freddie Mercury with a microphone, that's almost a puppeteer in a form. You're creating a life with this object through your body and the attention you're giving something. So that's a big source. And so that's one of the reasons that Double Soup came in. And that's also one of the more memorable performances at Weird Music Night.
You know who they've actually had on, P?
Who?
Brian Ember.
Oh, yeah. Brian Ember played one about...
Yeah.
He's been on the show. He's been on the show. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw a picture of Brian Ember, and before hearing any of his music, I was like, all right, dude, I don't care what you sound like. You're going to perform Weird Music Night. And
That's about right.
I was right.
That's about right. That's about right.
And there's another great guy. He goes by Tommy Riles. He is a good friend of mine from a long time ago. We used to do art together, drawing together. But he started doing Irish dance, and in August he did Irish dance to a Metallica song.
Right.
Yes.
And it was funny because I knew he was doing the Irish dance, and I had texted him. I said, yo, Tom, I haven't seen you for a while. I know you're doing the Irish dance. It's looking really fun. I've been seeing your stuff on Facebook. Have you thought about doing it to like a black metal or heavy metal soundtrack? He's like, I've been thinking about doing it to Metallica. And so there's these things that exist in the ether. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of obvious, right? Like, oh, you do Irish dance. And I know he's a really good guitar player. And so it's like, hey, what about this idea? And he's like, yeah, obviously. Right. So there's things so weird is also this thing that isn't necessarily completely way off base. It's not out of the world. It's adjacent to our reality. And sometimes weirdness is just 2 or 3 steps outside of logic, in the same way like comedy is taking 2 disconnected points and creating a logical connection. So there's like, so like when we say weird, it's not like it's too abstract to even describe. It's usually just a little bit off of what we're expecting.
Right. What are we expecting in the next couple weeks for a Weird Music Night? What are some performances that people should just catch? Even poetry, because there was a lot of great poetry with what I saw at my first show. Yeah,
I'm really working on a friend of mine named Penelope Petsalon, who is an award-winning poet. So maybe this interview will give her the encouragement to commit to the date. Penelope, we need you.
I love it.
There you go.
And another one is probably a local act that you might know, Broken Robots.
I've heard of them.
They just played with Brian Ember a couple weeks ago at Best Video. And let's see, my own performance project. We play. It's noise musicians, but I have a really cool collaborator who plays guitar. We're called Skull Tower 4E. And I wear like a cool skull mask and skull cap. We just performed in Brooklyn. We've mainly performed at galleries in New York. and we just performed at a bar in Brooklyn last week. And
good
my
for you.
collaborator, he's a really cool ceramic artist, kind of well known in Japan, but he is born in Hungary, lived in Ireland for 20 years, so he has this like great accent. I said, like an Irish vampire. And so there's these kind of things that might not even be part of the music that are weird, but that are like stimulating to me. And gosh, it's so hard to even think of what's this really cool person named Tarika. She's from a band that was kind of popular in the 2010s who toured a lot with Animal Collective. Her and her sister were in a band called Prince Rama, and so she's going to do a performance. She does some unconventional things, like sometimes we'll just like bring an inflatable bed to the venue and sing from the bed. And then so there's these other things that are challenges for performers in that context, like, oh, the subwoofer is actually hitting the microphone because the microphone isn't used to being this low at this type of venue when you're laying on a bed singing in a bar. So there's kind of some fun, weird things like, and also this kid, who's like 8 years old, who lives in Queens. He plays saxophone and is just a friend of my friend. And they showed me a video of this kid playing saxophone with someone doing some experimental keyboards. And they were like, hey, what do you think about this kid playing Weird Music Night? I'm like, yo, come on over. Like, this is, and Weird Music Night, it's a free event, so we don't pay the musicians. So it's kind of hard for me to recruit. Right. Because I can't say, hey, we'd love to have you play, but we can't give you any money. So it's in a lot of ways it's word of mouth, and so many people have visited Weird Music Night. So I don't even plan out that far in advance. I usually meet someone at Weird Music Night and they say, oh, this is amazing. How could I play here? I'm like, well, you want to go up next month? So in a weird way, it's like kind of like awesome. It's like a open mic with just a short waiting period.
Well, that was one of the other things that I was going to say is like, do you go out to like some of the open mic? Because New Haven has an incredible open mic scene.
Yeah, we do.
Do you go out to like say Stella Blues on a Tuesday and see like some because I've sat at Stella Blues and one night there's been some strange music electronically and then somebody singing show tunes. So they have something like that on the Tuesday. Do you go out there and take a look at that the locals?
No, but that's a great lead. So I live in West Hartford, so it's always kind of difficult for me to get out to certain things in New Haven. But that's actually a really good lead. That's really cool. I think I will do that. I used to, when I lived in New Haven, I'd go to Stella Blues a lot. Really like that place, and definitely would like attend different types of weird or open mic things in the past. But that's actually a really good point to recruit. And Indigo, who performed most recently, does Third Space New Haven and Punk Noir. And I handed out some pamphlets. I gave some to them to share at the next open mic. So yeah, people listening to this, hit me up. Weird Music Night at Instagram, Weird Music Night at Gmail, which is so strange that weirdmusicnight.com, Weird Music Night at Gmail wasn't taken. Weird Music Night Instagram is available. Like, so, again, this is not necessarily completely out of this frame of reference, but it's just weird and it's next to our reality and no one said it yet.
I'm going to piggyback off you. Weird Music Night record label. What came first?
Got it. Nice. Weird Music Night came first, but it came out of so I had this situation where I was outside of a bar in Boston with some friends, and I was just like kind of like singing, joking around, making noises, and I think back in the day, my natural environment was like smoking a cigarette, chopping it up with a bunch of strangers outside of the front of a bar. And it's just
we call that a Tuesday. We call that a Tuesday.
Yeah. Like if that was a zoo enclosure you'd set up for me, that's what it looked like. But this guy said, he's like, hey man, you're crazy. I love what you're doing. I want to sign you to my record label. I was like, you haven't even heard my music yet. He's like, yeah, I've heard enough. You're really, really goofy guy. Like, I like what you're thinking. He's like, well, tell me about your music. And I had a song on my phone I had recorded earlier that week. And he's like, oh, this is strange. Like, so, and I won't say the name of the label or anything like that, but so he signed me to the label, and it just became like this headache. Like, there was a Bandcamp made, like the password was lost. Like, I ended up doing all this work for some of the other bands, printing T-shirts, doing tour posters, and I'm like, hey, yo, what about me? And then I realized, like, if I want to do this, I got to just do it myself and have a little bit more agency. So I've reached out to some friends of mine who are actually really good musicians, maybe not even weird. They're weird, but in a really skilled, learned way. One's named Spirodon, another one's named Jean Chalant. who has been on in bands, a lot of different bands. One that was signed to Sub Pop for a while, made of former members of the Fleet Foxes. So these people that are pretty established in the music world, but maybe are a little bit too weird for a mainstream music taste. So I have one person on the record label, and then we just released a compilation which people should check out. Brian Ember is on it. Girls Just Want to Have Fun. It's 24 covers of Girls Just Want to Have Fun by musicians that I reached out to through my community and Instagram. And it's a fun series of songs. And, you know, the part of the origin story with this compilation is that the very first version of Girls Just Want to Have Fun was written by Robert Hazard in 79. And then Cyndi Lauper did her version in 83, but everyone attributes it to Cyndi Lauper because that's how it really became iconic. And it was just a banger. And now everyone sees that as a Cyndi Lauper song, even though it's a cover. So when people are doing a cover, they're covering a cover. And I feel like that creates this cool lineage. And so we got amazing submissions for that. 24 tracks. Check them out on Weird Music Night, Bandcamp.
That's all. No, that's awesome. That's one of the key things, and I love the fact that it's the cover of the cover. People don't realize the same thing with All Along the Watchtower and different things like that. You know, because Hendrix did such a great version, they almost forget about Bob Dylan's version, or Hey Joe, which was a cover as well. You know.
Oh, I didn't know Hey Joe was. That's great.
Yeah, Hey Joe was a cover as well. So there's a lot of really interesting. And back then in music, that was something that happened more often. You know, people were licensing other people's songs more than just going out there and writing, you know, a bunch of stuff on their own or different aspects. You know, I kind of love like in a scene where, you know, one local band will learn one cover song from another local band, and they'll play it like when they're on the bill together or something like that. That's always fun.
Yeah, or this. Oh, I actually want to dig back into this in the future because I just remembered it. I think No Effects had this great song Linoleum, and it's been covered by hundreds of people. And I think they even made a documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but they made a documentary just compiling all of these people doing covers of Linoleum. And, you know, I grew up being really, you know, as much as I could be in an age before the internet, really into like punk rock. And, you know, sometimes even when I was younger, I'd hear someone like the Misfits and I was like, I don't know, it's a little raw for me, you know, and then, and then realizing how produced that was, you know, I was like, and also like another thing, I told someone this and they're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense for your personality. The very first time the way I was introduced to Nirvana was I heard a Weird Al cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit.
That
and
makes
I thought
sense.
I was like, this song is so amazing. And I was playing it for my friend. He's like, you know, that's based on a different song.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, I didn't know that. And so Weird Al was one of my first favorite musicians, and I didn't realize they were all parodies.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and also I grew up reading Mad Magazine. And so I think as a kid, I was very much like just informed by parody and irony, and you know, I was more interested in the weird versions of the thing that was official.
I totally get that. I totally get that because I actually had the similar experience to CeeLo Green's "Forget You." The first time I heard it was actually Will Shatner's version, which was amazing.
Oh, that sounds really fun.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. And I was just like, oh yeah, no, he did it live. I just happened to be flipping through the channels one night, and there it was, and I thought this was the most incredible song. And then I heard CeeLo's version, and CeeLo's version is great. Don't get me wrong. I don't pour salt on anyone's hustle, but there's something about that Shatner version. It's just so, and Shatner has become one of my favorite artists that are out there. The Fear of Pop record that he did, I thought was absolutely amazing. The record that he did with Ben Folds was incredible. You know, big fan. The track that he does with Henry Rollins, talking about I Can't Get Behind That, was such a good track. You know, and the other track about how all of everyone he knows is dead.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. Pat Boone. Old crooner Pat Boone did a metal record, like a cover of Holy Diver, and it's just it's amazing. Wow. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that for a while.
It's incredible for all the wrong reasons.
And to hear a Dio riff translated to like horns, You know, like a brass band, big band kind of crooner vibe is so fun. And, you know, at a certain point, you don't even want to listen to the whole song. You're just like, okay, I get it. I get what you're doing here, and I like it. It's very funny, but I don't really have a lot of time for this.
I'm gonna need the TikTok version. I'm gonna need it in 15 seconds, and we're good. You know?
Exactly. Or almost even just being aware of the concept. You're like, all right, cool. Yeah, okay, soundbite. Okay, I get it. No, I don't need to hear that Crazy Train cover. Sorry.
Well, that's like the acts that have done it, like Richard Cheese, you know, where he does all of those covers, but he does them in the big band lounge singer type of way. It really is super, super interesting. You know, has there ever been a cover where you're like, that is what I wanted, like that is what I want to accomplish?
On
Is there a
WNHHLP
song-
103.5 FM New Haven. Go ahead, John.
Yes. There's this guy from the late 90s, early 2000s named Adam and his package, ATOM, and his package. And his package is this little tiny, like, little sound generating synthesizer box.
Mhm.
But he does an amazing cover of a Misfits song, Eagles Dare. And it's got this weird poppy synthesizer underneath it, and just this weird screechy voice. And it's good, and it was so fun for me, and I even keep revisiting it. And you know, this is back in the day when you would like get like a mix CD, and there's like certain songs you would hear, because I've been an artist in like these different print shops or shared studios where everyone's sharing each other's music, or not each other's music, but their music collection. And so that was one of those songs I heard. I was like, wow, this is so insane. What is this? And then it would pop up occasionally, and then I got a download of it. Anyway, that inspired the next cover album that I'm trying to put together with Weird Music Night, which is like, mind if I play some Misfits? So it's like, hopefully I get some people to submit some Misfits covers. And
Nice.
I realize I really hope it happens. I think like the Girls Just Want to Have Fun was kind of one of those things. Like any of us right now could just immediately start singing Girls Just Want to Have Fun, or even make our own version of it real quick. But, you know, it might take a kind of a particular fan or music person to be interested in doing a Misfits cover song. But I always thought that the funnest band to be the funnest cover band to be a singer for would be the Misfits.
Right.
Because the songs aren't too fast. There's a certain melody to it. There's a fun delivery. I think that'd just be a fun cover band to be in.
Nice. I gotta talk to the guys about that. That might be. I might have something for you. I might have.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I think because
fun.
it would take a really particular fan to appreciate the Misfits, and then also with like enough of a sense of humor, self-awareness, and reverence to do it. And I don't know, I think it would be a fun thing to do. Another thing about Weird Music Night, when we first started, I used to have an overture where there was songs playing in advance. And then at a certain point I realized like, oh, it's such a social thing. People are just talking anyway. And then at a certain point it's hard for me to get some of these things together. So one version was a really great album from, I think, what is, I have it here. In the 70s, it was called Electronic Music Winners. And it was all of these different experimental music compositions. A lot of them were made by musicians, but some were just made by computer scientists. And it became this album that was kind of underground for a while. And then Radiohead sampled a bunch of it for their 2000 album Kid A. And so there's these really iconic little beeps and bloops from this Electronic Music Winners album from, I think, 73. And what I did is I overlaid that with this series of humpback whale sounds that were published by National Geographic in 79. And so, and also the Humpback Whales album was the largest pressing of any record ever, because it was done by National Geographic. 7.9 million of these albums were pressed and mailed out all across America. So everyone that subscribed to National Geographic received this experimental music in the mail, which was Humpback Whale songs. And so in a lot of ways, those Humpback Whales won the privilege of being sent out to America.
Right.
You know, almost like it's like Animal, The Voice, or America's Got Talent, but for whales. So everyone got to hear these whales. And so I took the whale songs from National Geographic and I layered it over the Electronic Music Winners. And so for me, that was this really cool collaboration between these super smart mammals in the animal kingdom, and then almost the height of human technology composing music and blending them over each other. So that was just like one example of an overture that I had for a Weird Music Night. Another one was taking, there's people that have found and reconstructed Neanderthal bone flutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that and layered it over theoretical dinosaur vocalization. So it's kind of cavemen versus dinosaurs.
Right.
So those are just some examples of these kind of, and it's not uncommon for people to play tracks on top of each other, like at college radio stations. It's not like a groundbreaking thing, but I was like, all right, what's a concept that, like, for example, like you both gave me a nice little chuckle for those. Like that's kind of one of those concepts. Like, hey, here's the idea. You don't even have to listen to it. You can imagine. It's like the Pat Boone cover of Holy Diver.
Exactly.
So that's another fun thing I might bring back for Weird Music Night. But now that Weird Music Records is going, I'll probably try to release some of those types of things. And I think that maybe if you just blend things enough, you don't have to worry about copyright. I don't
know. John, unfortunately, we're coming to a close just for this. I want to talk to you more and more and more. I think we can talk for hours. But we always like to give these last couple minutes for our guests. Please plug anything you can think of to the top of your head. Please plug it. Also, give anybody some inspirational advice for someone who wants to go into a similar path as yours. And social media, definitely. Please get out that social media. Put reach out to you. Go right ahead.
Yo, I really appreciate you two having me on here today. Follow Weird Music Night. Instagram, weirdmusicnight@gmail. Let's get old school. Send me an email, whatever. Big cool Weird Music Night event coming up March 29th, Saturday, 7 p.m. Lower East Side, New York at Satellite Gallery. We have a variety of musicians from New England and New York all coming together to get weird in a small gallery. It happened in November and it was cool. I had a lot of people that were kind of old heads from like the 80s. They're like, this is what it was like in the punk rock scene when there was just a bunch of people crammed in a space doing all kinds of different things. There's even some kids like burning some money. Like there was some cool stuff going on.
Nice.
And just really, really raucous, but in a weird way, safe, like, but fun, but surprising, but weird. So that's happening again. We have a really cool musician who's coming from Boston or from Providence named Barbie AI. We have a really amazing like performance dancer named Kinetics with Carly, who's doing a video game inspired interactive dance routine. And then we have my personal project, Skull Tower 4E, like noise and guitar. We got Brian Ember there, another guy named Rick Royer, a lot of strange people, a really cool person named Luke Bergman, who plays steel pedal guitar and sings through a vocoder and is like kind of famous in the music world, like plays with has written songs for Andrew Bird, been on tour with all kinds of people. So I'm attracting a lot of like kind of cool people that are known in the music scene or that are kind of behind the scenes. And so that's one coming up. May 8th, we got another one at the Ely Center. August 6th, I think, is another Weird Music Night at the Ely Center. And let's see, some advice for people that want to do this. Just do it. Just do it. I one of the things that I've been inspired by is a lot of different curators and performance artists, but my friends are all doing the similar things, whether it's in Miami or Ohio or Seattle. Just, starting a gallery doesn't mean signing a lease. It means creating a room big enough for some people to hang out in, whether it's in a garage or, borrowing a friend's space or just clearing the furniture out of your apartment for the night. You do something, invite your friends over, make it real, take some pictures, and just do what you want to do. And the most important thing, oh man, I don't remember if this is Steve Albini. Who was the person that? Oh, Neil Young. In an interview a while ago, Neil Young said the most important thing you can do is not be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And even if you're, even when you're just about to start the performance, tell yourself it's okay if I blow it. It's okay. Like what's going to happen? After I played at a bar in Brooklyn last week, I was like, wow, that was pretty easy. Everyone was really nice to me afterwards, and I didn't have to confirm anything. There wasn't an audition. Like even if I did a bad job, I wouldn't get in trouble, right? So there's, just do it and just start it and just go for it. And don't practice because you'll ruin it. You know what I mean?
Oh, That's a first.
Yeah.
I like that, though. I really do. John, thank you so much, man. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate this. Easy appreciates this. Thank you so much. And definitely support local shows. Support curators, support people trying to do this for your community because it's really big and impactful for the city. WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Preston, and Mr. EZ BlueZ. We appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just discount? I don't